The United States is softening their emissions regulations due to plummeting demand for EVs, as well as unrealistic expectations that the government put on these companies in the first place. We'll talk about that going on today. Talk about BYD and them getting blocked out of the North American market. EV battery materials are improving, and that's why you shouldn't buy an EV right now. Well, it depends on who you are, but they're just going to get better and better and better. And waiting or leasing a current one is probably a smart idea. We'll talk about what's going on with this material out of Japan. Rivian and Lucid, their finances are not looking good in today's environment. However, battery costs are plummeting right now, and that's a great thing for better affordability for electric vehicles, and in theory, hybrids too, and plug-in hybrids. And then this just came out this morning. Toyota's working on capturing carbon from a vehicle. Ford cuts Mach E EV prices by thousands as sales are plunging, demand is plunging. And lastly, we'll talk about Jeep's first EVs landing in the US as early as this summer. So if you're new to the channel, my name's Kirk. I talk about industry auto news, but on Sunday mornings, I do an EV auto news update. There's just too many articles for me to make individual videos about. If they're really big ones, in my opinion, then I'll make a dedicated video. But there's just so much news out there, and I'm just a one-man team, so I kind of compile it all together for you guys on Sunday mornings to the best of my ability. And if you guys would rather see this in live stream format on Sunday afternoons or something like that, let me know, because I love live streaming with you guys. I love hanging out. I love getting your thoughts in real time about the issues surrounding pro, con, neutral around EVs. It's just a lot of fun to interact with you guys. So let me know if you want to do a live stream, and if you want more of these Sunday morning updates as well, make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell icon, and hit the like button. And let's get into the first one here. U.S. is softening tailpipe rules. Biden administration to slow EV transition through 2030. Automakers in the UAW, which, last year the UAW was shutting down the big three essentially. So the UAW's workers can get better paid by General Motors, Ford, etc. So UAW is extremely powerful here in the United States alongside the automakers, but both of them are actually on the same side on this one. They've been urging the presidential administration that's currently in office to slow down the proposed ramp up in EV sales. They say EV technology is too costly for U.S. mainstream customers, and that more time is needed to develop the charging infrastructure. Hey, I'm almost going to pause. Well, I am going to pause here, but I would say even the average price of cars nowadays is priced outside of mainstream U.S. customers. So what is mainstream U.S. customers nowadays? I feel like cars have just gotten so expensive, as well as interest rates are so high. It's priced a lot of people out of buying a new car, and used car prices have skyrocketed as well, and let alone the interest rates on a used car right now. Despite that, we know EVs transact a little bit higher typically than traditional gas cars, or even hybrids for that matter. But I absolutely agree that the charging infrastructure here in the United States and Canada, Mexico, it's nowhere near where it needs to be in order for mass adoption of battery electric vehicles to happen. And you also have the issue of people not being able to charge at home because they live in an apartment and their apartment doesn't provide chargers, etc. So there's a lot of issues that need to get ironed out. And it looks like the government is finally, saying, hey, maybe we were too aggressive and we didn't actually look into the lack of demand and all the issues that surround EVs right now, which spurs a lack of demand, or should I say cooling demand. There is not a complete lack of demand. EVs continue to grow. Tesla, the last 2 quarters have been negative in growth in places like California. So it's really, really cooling down across the United States with EV uptake. The EPA proposed in April 2023 requiring 56 reduction in new vehicle emissions by 2032 under the initial EPA proposing covering 2027 to 2032. Automakers were expected to aim for EVs to constitute 60% of their new vehicle production by 2030. 60%, 67% by 2032 to meet even stricter emissions regulations. 60% is not, that's not even best case scenario in California. I don't think. I think EVs could get maybe 30-40% in California by 2030. And I know California, I think, wants to be fully electric by 2035. They're going to have to walk back that as well, as it's not practical for mass adoption, at least at this point in time. And under the revised final regulation expected to make public as soon as next month, the EPA will slow the pace of its proposed yearly emission requirements through 2030. The new pace is expected to result in EVs accounting for less than 60%. So they don't even know. The EPA probably doesn't know themselves. Well, I mean, they didn't know the first time they made the law in effect. And what is it going to be now? 55, 50? Is it going to be 30%, where it probably is more realistically to be? Let me know down below. What percentage do you think the vehicle market will be as fully electric by 2030? You know, Alliance for Automotive Innovation, which includes GM, Ford, Stellantis, Toyota, Volkswagen, and others, they called the initial EPA proposal neither reasonable or achievable, or nor achievable, and urged adopting requirements for 40 to 50% electric, which include plug-in electric, so that means plug-in hybrids, and fuel cell vehicles, which that's never gonna be, at least in the near future, gonna be a big significant part of the auto share market. But if we look at electric and plug-in electric, plug-in electric is blending the both worlds together. You can drive an electric range anywhere from 30 to 60 miles, depending on the battery pack size in there. And you also have your gasoline engine on board as your range extender for your trips out of town. And it's super convenient, and it's good to have options. Being electric only doesn't work for the majority of the population at this point in time, but plug-in electric also doesn't work for the majority of the population because they still need a place to plug in. So what's another solution? Well, why aren't they focusing on hybrids? Riddle me that. Why are we jumping straight from gasoline to fully battery electric? Well, it's because, there's a lot of political reasons for it, and I'll let you guys discuss that down below. But hybrids, even though they reduce emissions massively compared to non-hybrid cars, they seemingly are getting left out of the picture right now. That's in the government's eyes, not in the eyes of the customer. And we know hybrids are outpacing growth, the sales of electric vehicles at this point in time. And I think that will continue to happen. We know Honda keeps delivering more hybrids. Hyundai Motor Group keeps delivering more hybrids. Toyota is going to be delivering more hybrids. Camry's going full hybrid. RAV4 is probably going full hybrid. Corolla could go full hybrid. And there's no lifestyle changes needed for hybrids because you don't need to plug them in. And they have the typical maintenance schedule as gas cars, except less maintenance. But I'm not going to get into, why hybrids over gas cars or electric vehicles. It depends on the situation. EVs accounted for 8% of sales in 2023. So you're telling me, government, 8% in 2023 and 2032, 9 years later, they want 62%? Obviously, that is the most unrealistic and just not practical. They just threw out a number, it seems like. Just throw out a number. Let's see if we can get close to hitting it, and maybe they can move the needle to having, more electrified vehicles out there. I need to move on. Should U.S. block Chinese auto imports from Mexico? This is a part of last week's news when I was talking about how BYD wants to build factories in Mexico, build cheap EVs, send them to the United States to undercut all of the car prices essentially here in the States, whether it's a hybrid, gas, or electric. I don't know. Should they? I'll see you guys down below if you think the U.S. should block the import of these cheap, low-cost Chinese autos and parts from Mexico in order to protect the auto industry here in the United States. A part of me doesn't want them to block them. Should they be tariffed? Probably not. They're playing by the rules by setting up camp here in North America to avoid the import taxes. But we know that there are unfair practices going on in China to support these Chinese automakers. But leave that up to the customer to decide if they want to spend $5,000 less on their brand new car on a Chinese EV instead of buying a Corolla or something like that, right? I like it for it to be in the hands of the customer instead of completely in the hands of the government. There's a lot of business at risk here in the United States if they just allow these cheap Mexican-made Chinese cars into the United States. So I can see both ways. Thank God I'm not a lawmaker for lots of different reasons. And moving on over to NK Asia. So the battery encapsulation is being lightened. Okay, Japan's Proterial is lightening cars, not just battery packs, but potential full-on battery electric vehicles, the entire weight down by 10%, which means you get 10% better range. Well, roughly, right? This new material is replacing aluminum cases and protecting against electromagnetic interference. Electric vehicles have more onboard electronic devices than gas cars, and interference from electromagnetic waves generated from inverters, onboard chargers, and other equipment can cause these devices to malfunction, potentially leading to accidents or combustion, right? Explosions of these batteries. And batteries on other parts currently are covered with aluminum cases to block electromagnetic waves. Proterial has developed an alternative sheet covering consisting of thin plates made mainly of iron sandwiched between films. And batteries and other parts are covered with the sheet and then coated with a layer of plastic to shield them from vibrations. Mass production will begin within this year. If Toyota and Nissan don't benefit from this, then it's a completely missed opportunity from them, in my opinion, at Panasonic as well. If Panasonic is not using this material to lighten their batteries and lightening their cases, then that is a missed opportunity. The con to this is what we see with Tesla, for example. They're using their batteries as structural integrity for the vehicle. And if you no longer have those hard aluminum cases, those heavy hard aluminum cases, heavy compared to this, right? Then is this potentially a less safe material in the car? So this new covering makes the battery about 30% lighter than using the aluminum casing. And this is one example of EV technology moving so fast that buying an EV today, it's already outdated. But does that mean it's a bad car? Absolutely not. If it meets your needs, if you just drive around town, EVs are perfect. Most of them are really expensive. So I would love to see more affordable city EVs for those who can charge at home. You know, a lot of people, most of those people who can charge at home also have space for another car. So whether it be a hybrid or a gas car for their longer range activities, then they don't have to worry about getting a really expensive EV with all this battery range that they are likely to never use. So anyways, got off topic there. Let's keep moving. Lucid and Rivian, it's not looking good for them. We know EV demand's cooling. The R1T got a $3,100 price cut recently. It's still $71,000, but for a pickup truck nowadays, that's the going rate. However, this is not a full-size pickup truck. The R1T is kind of like mid-size Tacoma size. Lucid follows suit with their Air sedan, and their Pure trim also starts around $71,000 with shipping after its $7,500 price cut. So bigger price cuts over at Lucid. Both of those companies are burning through cash. Rivian wants to launch its R2 platform for more affordable vehicle prices at an event on March 7th, so stay tuned for that. Hopefully it can bring you some of that coverage. Lucid plans to launch its Gravity crossover that I saw at the LA Auto Show. But we don't know when they're going to launch it, I don't believe. And it's going to be really expensive at launch. You know, of course, they're going to come out with their most expensive trims first and then over time come out with the cheaper trims. But can they afford to do that? Do they have the longevity and the cash in the bank to be able to survive a slow rollout like that? I don't think they do anymore. In 2023, Rivian was in the top 5 for electric vehicle sales in the United States. It was only 46,000. Lucid sold 6,200 vehicles. If we go back to 2021, Rivian and Lucid, when they were put on the stock market and listed, they had higher market valuations than Ford and General Motors, but stock prices for each have fallen by more than 80% from market highs after missing growth forecasts. I'm not getting into the details. I can make a video on just how I don't believe both of these companies are going to survive after the next few years. They are burning through cash. We know Lucid has big investments from Saudi Arabia companies. We know Rivian has big investments from Amazon. But if they're just not profitable, both of those investment companies could drop them like it's hot. After EV price cuts, cheaper batteries could be just what automakers need, and you could say what the customer needs. Lithium is driving down in cost, but it's not just lithium. Price declines for cobalt, nickel, and other materials are also lowering battery costs as well. LG Energy and Solution, which we know they're super important here in the North American market. I think they're the 3rd largest battery maker in the world at this point. They supply General Motors. They're actually going to be supplying some of Toyota's battery electric vehicle batteries with their pouch style cells. And then they also are going to be providing cells with Honda at their own joint venture in Ohio with LG. They said in their fourth quarter financial results that low revenues were related to declining material costs that drove down the average sales price for its battery products. Last time we saw lithium peak was in 2022 at $85 per kilogram of lithium hydroxide. The estimated price now for this quarter is all the way down to $16 per kg, a lessening of 80% of its price and value. What's crazy is mining companies have bet so much in extracting these materials. Doesn't look like they're being that profitable right now. There's in Australia, they put a battery metal on the list of critical minerals for the month, and this designation gives producers access to a special fund to support struggling mining operations. So they're getting government handouts because there's no demand, or should I say there's not enough market demand and the prices are just too low at this point in time to make them profitable. So they're getting handouts for the government to stay afloat. It's not looking good, I guess you could say, from the miners aspect. And the customers aspect, in theory, it's a good thing. But if the mining operations are not, if it's no longer profitable for them to mine these minerals, that reduces availability, it drives up demand, which increases the prices once again. I'll put this in the comments down below as well if you guys want to read more into that. We got to keep moving. Toyota's working on capturing carbon for carbon negative engines. So in theory, they could clean air as you drive. Well, we know that Toyota's been testing this CO2 sucking technology on the GR Corolla race car, and the car's hydrogen burning engine emits only trace amounts of carbon dioxide, making it a carbon neutral vehicle. And a new filtering device removes greenhouse gas from the atmosphere with every lap. Toyota is the first company to test this technology in a vehicle. Honestly, I mean, I guess it's a good thing, right? To clean up the air while you're still kind of polluting it with other non-CO2 emission gases. But I mean, just plant a bunch of trees, guys. That's how I see it. Here we go. Ford cuts Mach E EV prices by thousands as sales plunge. Check this out. We're over at Green Car Reports. $3,000 change, $4,000, $8,000 change on the premium rear-wheel drive extended range and all-wheel drive extended range models. $8,000 price cuts. In the California Route 1, I never know what to say, route or route, down $8,000 as well. The GT models are down $7,600 as well. What would the price have to be for a Mustang Mach-E? What would it have to be for you to buy one? $30,000, $35,000? That might have to be the case. They might have to be $35,000 for people to start buying them at really, really high numbers. If we look at the updated MSRPs, we're still about $5,000 away from maybe having a much higher adoption rate. I still don't think at these numbers it's going to really move the needle for them in terms of demand and volume. But I'll see you guys down below on that. Upcoming EVs out of Stellantis here, out of the Jeep company. And this could land as early as July with an electric Wrangler-like recon to follow. Would you guys, I mean, I really enjoyed the plug-in hybrid of the Grand Cherokee as well as the Wrangler, the 4xe. This looks like an electric Grand Cherokee. Even though they're giving this the Wagoneer naming, maybe it's not quite as big as the some of the Wagoneers. Maybe it's more Grand Cherokee size, but the Wagoneer name has a lot of pulling power, and it's definitely a more upscale nameplate. So maybe that's why they're coming out with the Wagoneer as their first EV, called the Wagoneer S. Production should be beginning pretty soon here in Q2. It should have 600 horsepower and a 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. Yowzers. Well, we know how fast electric vehicles are. Jeep claims or aims around 400 miles of range, rivaling Rivian's R1S. Do you think Jeep will be able to do that? And let's say that they are able to do that. Do you think that's going to drive some sales? Definitely some sales away from the R1S, but do you think it's going to beat out the R1S? I think the front end looks better. I don't like the R1S's front end, but I like it from all the other angles. I just don't like the oblong egg, I guess it's oval-like headlights on the Rivians. I think it looks kind of dorky. and a little soft to me, but I definitely like this Wagoneer front end. Screens galore in the front, which makes me sick to look at. Here's a Jeep Recon Moab 4xe. It's a gorgeous looking vehicle. I like how boxy it is. It kind of reminds me of a Land Cruiser or Defender style. I think this would sell really, really well for them. I'm not so sure on the Wagoneer S, but this Recon 4xe looks really, really, really good. What do you guys think down below? It kind of looks like the mini Land Cruiser that Toyota's working on, but not miniaturized. It's big. It doesn't give me the same vibes as what we see on the new J250 though. It doesn't look like there's a lot of ground clearance. Maybe it's an optical illusion, but maybe it needs to be low to the ground with its really heavy battery pack inside. But it says you can take off the doors, very Jeep-like style. We could have 800-volt options on the Recon, so hopefully we see that as well. I think this would do really, really amazing for the Jeep brand. The Wagoneer S, not entirely sure, but boxiness and off-roadiness is the big craze right now. But off-roading an electric vehicle doesn't make that much sense. A plug-in hybrid makes a ton of sense for off-roading, and you can use it for camping, electric generator, right? So that's more practical for off-roading, no doubt, in my opinion. Would you rather have a plug-in hybrid version of this Recon, or would you have a fully battery electric? Oh, it's hard to say, right? I would have to see the specs on both of them and see. I don't know. I'd probably take the plug-in hybrid, to be honest. But let me know what you guys think about all the news today. I think the softening of the tailpipe rules is, I think it's a political stunt to get some maybe more votes, to pull some more votes before. I mean, it's an election year, so there's always going to be big shakeups in announcements and rules and things like that. So I think that's kind of what's going on here. If we get a switching of the other party in power for the next administration, then that's really going to roll back the tailpipe rules, in my opinion. And then we could see maybe hybrids come out as the king in the next decade or so. Time will tell, though, and it's exciting for me to cover. I don't really care one way or the other, but if I did, I can't be too obvious here on the channel. Got to stay as neutral as possible when it comes to politics. But when it comes to cars, I can tell you what I like and don't like. That's definitely something I'm willing to be a bit more subjective on. And thank you guys for watching. Like I said down below, let me know next week if you would rather have this as a live stream, and maybe I'll make it a poll on the channel. That makes sense. If you'd rather have it as a live stream or a dedicated video like I did today. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good one and peace.